What you are watching is body cam footage recorded by a Palm Beach Gardens police officer as he responds to a report of a dead body discovered at a public park.
Hi.
Took my dogs for a walk.
Do you have your identification on
I take
you?
my dogs for a walk every morning. I took them at 5:30. There was nothing. Came back here just 7 o'clock. The dogs come running over here and look, he's deader in a guardrail.
Okay. All right.
The dead body being referred to is that of 71-year-old Florida man Alan Abramson. Within minutes, EMTs arrived at the scene and confirmed that Alan was in fact dead.
Don't go nowhere. I need names.
I thought he was sleeping. That's why I yelled at the dogs.
What time was it that you
Tennis
found?
shoes on.
What time do you think that he found him? What time?
10 minutes ago.
Like 10 minutes?
Just
Okay.
5:30, there was nobody here.
Okay.
Brought him back at 7, and that's when I found that.
Okay.
Looked like he was shot or something?
Yeah, right in the heart.
Ah, horrible.
Small caliber.
Yeah.
Since Alan had clearly been shot, officers wondered if the murder weapon had been abandoned nearby. So, as some officers scoured the field on their hands and knees, a diving team also searched a nearby river. As these searches took place, other officers began interviewing anybody that walked past the crime scene, hoping somebody had witnessed something between 5:30 and 7 a.m. that morning.
Hey, did you see this?
No, I ride past here every day to go to work. So he's one of the guys that I do usually see walk past here. So the
That's
guy
him?
that's over here with the white gentleman that's over here talking, he sounds him.
Okay.
They're always.
Did he stop you?
Yeah, he stopped me
Okay.
because he doesn't have the phone.
Do you take this path all
No,
the
this is my
time?
first time I'm going to an eye
Okay.
doctor appointment.
Okay.
Did anyone talk to you specifically this week? Anybody that stood out to you as suspicious or dangerous or anything unusual?
Yes.
Detectives also headed to Alan's home in the Ballin Isles private community to inform his wife Linda of his death. They knocked on the door several times, but nobody answered. So they decided to try calling Linda. When she answered the phone, she explained that she was actually on vacation 1,400 miles away. Realizing that this murder was becoming a complex investigation, the detectives contacted the first responders on the scene to ask if there had been any more developments. They explained that Alan was actually shot on the left side of his chest, and the wound was surrounded in gunshot residue and burnt fabric. The presence of GSR and burnt fabric indicated that he was shot at very close range. There was something odd though. The bloodstain on Alan's shirt had a thin trail of blood going up his shoulder, almost as if something was traveling upwards and had dragged through the gunshot wound and up his shirt. This was something they had never seen before. Another strange finding was the assortment of random items that were found on the ground directly next to Alan. This included his phone, a pair of scissors, some string, rubber bands, and a binder clip. When they asked Linda about these items, she confirmed that the binder clip found at the scene belonged to Alan. Apparently, he regularly used it to carry about $500 in cash. Since there was no money at the crime scene, the investigators wondered if Alan's death was actually a robbery gone wrong. But who would want to rob and murder Alan so early in the morning? Linda seemed to have an answer for that as well. She told the detectives that Alan's morning walks were usually to meet his friend Victor at Starbucks, which they later confirmed by looking through the Starbucks surveillance footage. So, the detectives tracked down Victor to see if he had any valuable information.
All right. So how long have you known Alan?
I'm going to say 3 years, maybe.
Okay. And do you hang out with him regularly?
Yeah, we socialize.
You know, we came to you because you're friends with us.
Yeah, but you're not telling me why.
Okay. Something happened to him this morning. That's why he didn't make it to the Starbucks. He was involved in an incident and he passed away.
Get out of here.
Yeah. We're sorry to tell you that, but
Does his wife know?
Yep, we've already talked to her. That's how we ended up coming to talk to you, because she said that you may know some stuff because he talks to you a lot at Starbucks.
No, guys, maybe I see him once a week because he golfs on the Monday, Friday group that I golf in. Guys, I am pissed off with this nicest person. I am telling you, this is just a fun-loving guy. My wife's going to get shot.
What? He passed away?
Well, it could have been suspicious.
Oh my God, Alan Abramson?
Yes, ma'am.
It kind of
Since Victor was the only person other than Linda who knew about the Starbucks rendezvous, the detectives had their suspicions that he had something to do with Alan's death. But instead of bringing him back to the station right away, they wondered if Victor could point them toward any other potential suspects.
Do you know of anybody that would have an anger towards Mr. Abramson or any kind of
No.
He has? any girlfriends or
Not
anybody that he was flirting with?
No, I don't think so.
No complaints about relatives or friends or anybody he owes money to or
Work related. No, he had one kind of a business partner.
Curious if this business partner had a financial motive to kill Alan, detectives went to his house to speak with him.
How long have you known him?
I would say about 20 years.
And how long have you guys been in business together?
Well, this business stopped about 3 years ago.
Okay.
This is not a current thing. This is a past 3
I
years
see.
ago.
Okay. And how long did it last before it stopped?
About 2 years.
Okay.
This friend also had no idea who could have done this, but he was at least able to help the detectives get in touch with Alan's children from a previous marriage, Rachel and Daniel Abramson. Unfortunately, Rachel and Daniel lived in Boston, so the detectives would have to wait a few days to interview them in person. In the meantime, the detectives looked at the Ballin Isles surveillance footage from the morning of the shooting. In the footage, Alan can be seen leaving the front entrance at 5:53 a.m. and walking towards PGA Boulevard. This road leads straight to Starbucks and just so happens to pass the field where Alan was found dead. Looking closely at the footage, Alan can be seen carrying something in his left hand, but it's unclear what it is. Nothing else happens for 37 minutes until suddenly a gunshot. The walk from where Alan was last seen to where his body was found only takes about 4 minutes. So what happened in the 37 minutes leading up to the shooting? The detectives obtained a search warrant for Alan's house to see if they could find any more pieces of this puzzle. They were able to find several firearms.
Today's date is January 31st. Time is 11:28 a.m. in the garage of the deceased. And this is going to be a video of firearms taken from the garage. There's a handgun inside. Along with 2 inside the hard case. I'll be taken to PD for evidence.
However, none of the guns or ammunition matched the bullet that was recovered during Alan's autopsy. A fully copper hollow point .38 caliber bullet. Looking into Alan's financial records, they learned that he had a hefty life insurance policy with several beneficiaries within his family. Perhaps someone in Alan's family had hired a hitman in order to collect their payout. Desperate for answers, the detectives interviewed everybody in Alan's inner circle, including his friend Alan Hirsch, who was expecting to golf with him on the day that he died.
How long have you known Alan?
Year and a half.
How would you describe Alan?
Affable.
Okay.
I was telling somebody, I don't think I ever saw him when he wasn't smiling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was very funny. And we started playing golf together. It was a hoot on the golf course, so it didn't matter. It was just a lot of fun.
So it looks like a lot of people loved him. Looks like he knew a lot of people in Ballin Isles.
Yeah.
From everybody that we speak to, it seems like he was nothing but a lovable guy.
Yeah.
Any beef with anybody? Was he like confrontational at all? Like,
Not at all. Not in any experience I ever had with him.
Okay. All right.
He was in my foursome for Thursday, 12:30
Yeah.
tea time, and I got there at around noon. Was warming up, and the other 2 fellas in the foursome asked me if I'd seen Alan that day. I said no. He usually would be here early because he goes like I said a lot of balls for
Sure.
play. He says I don't think he's going to show up, and I said well let me call him. And at about 20 after 12, I called his cell phone, got no answer, said he's not answering.
Okay.
So we went out and played.
So you called
I called
Alan's
his cell
phone. Okay.
12:19, I think it was. It's unfortunate for the community. It's kind of like losing their innocence.
Following this interview, they circled back with Victor to see if they could rule him out as a suspect.
Victor, how you doing?
Good to see you. Well,
How long have you known Alan?
basically, when he moved into Ballin Isles, I'm going to say 5 years.
I would consider Alan a good friend.
You been out to dinner with him before?
You and Alan recently started meeting at Starbucks. Alan doesn't show up on Thursday. You call, he goes to voicemail. You call again.
So the last time I tried him was 6:49, I think. And I probably left around, left at 7, by after 7.
Is that out of character for Alan not to show up?
I thought nothing of it, that maybe he overslept, whatever. I wasn't going to go to his home and ring the doorbell so I can't wake him. Quite frankly, that's what I kind of figured.
As an investigator, you put yourself in my shoes, okay? You're the only person that knew he was going to be walking out of that gate that night.
When you left the Starbucks that morning, I would assume you went westbound on PGA towards Ballin Isles.
I went right by that lake show.
How many police cars do you think were there?
6 maybe, 7. It was And guys, honestly, it should have never gone on. In hindsight, I mean, maybe it didn't.
The detectives were even more suspicious after hearing Victor's side of the story. But after speaking with him long enough, they were eventually able to cross him off their list. Once again, they asked him if he had any idea who could have been responsible.
Do you know anybody who would want to harm him?
No, I do not.
What would you say the general consensus of Alan is amongst the community, amongst his friends? How would you describe him to somebody who'd never met him, which is us?
Well, it's just the guy you'd want to go out and have a beer with, or hang out with, or spend 4 hours on the golf course with. He was just a fun guy.
Did he talk about any business dealings that coming up or anything like that? Having to meet anybody, anything at all?
No.
And how would you describe, if you know, his relationship with Linda?
I think it's great. And I think they were just really soulmates.
All of Alan's friends and family said that he had a solid marriage with Linda, but Linda was actually Alan's second wife. While interviewing Alan's kids, Rachel and Daniel, the detectives learned that Alan wasn't always such a loving husband and father.
Fill me in on some background. Tell me about your dad and how things were, and things you think I should know.
Gosh, I don't know. Let me ask you, y'all have any leads right now? Is any?
Let's go with this first.
Okay.
Over the phone, you said you've been basically estranged since 2003.
Yeah. My dad, I'll give you an example. We were driving to Baltimore, and he was bringing me to grad school. He said to me, I just want you to know I gave up a weekend with friends to do this. That was everything you needed to know about Alan Abramson as a father to Daniel Abramson and Rachel Abramson. We stood in the way of things. And that is how I always felt. I know he loved me to the best of his ability. I know that, but
It's the last time you were with 3 years ago?
I believe so, yeah. I was a distant man. He was not close in particular with me, my sister. My parents had a tough marriage.
Rachel and Daniel were painting their father as a completely different person than everybody else. Even Alan's reputation as the life of the party took a darker tone.
Well, you told me on the phone that you wanted me to know that your father was not a Boy Scout.
he was not a Boy Scout.
That he was a big partier, he was obnoxious,
Yes.
and he knew what buttons to push.
He did.
Could you elaborate on that?
He could be very offensive. He could be loud. He would just say things.
I know, my father liked to drink. My father liked to party.
He was a distant dude. He had a hard childhood. He didn't have a maternal mother, and he didn't have a paternal father. And he's probably a guy who, shouldn't have had kids. And we were just sort of my brother and I were an afterthought.
Clearly, Alan had rubbed some people the wrong way back in the day. So, did Alan's past finally come back to haunt him? The detectives asked Rachel and Daniel if their parents had a history of fighting. Apparently, a huge point of contention was Alan's infidelity.
We would have babies during the summer. And
When you were small.
when we were little, yeah, they would come for the summer with college. One year, my mom got a letter from one who was Mormon and was making amends for all the things she had done. And part of it was apologizing for my father having, been romantic with him. But just because someone cheats on one person doesn't mean anything,
Do you know anybody who would want to cause your father harm?
The short answer is no. What we've wondered was he worth more dead than alive to somebody? I know he had life insurance policies. I know there was a big trust from my grandfather. We're going to see any of that, but I know there was money. From what I know about this single gunshot wound, the chest it's really bizarre.
Is there anything that you want to add? Anything that
Is
you
there
think
any leads?
we're working the case? If
Yeah.
you notice, there's hardly anybody up here except me right now.
Because they're out.
Because they're out.
Good. And people are being interviewed?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think he's, when they shot him, do you think he laid there for a long time? Did he suffer?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
These interviews were eye-opening to say the least. The person that everybody appeared to love for his vibrant personality turned out to have a past littered with drama. But when the detectives looked into his ex-wife as a potential suspect, they were quickly able to rule her out. They also got the results from the crime lab, and there was no evidence of somebody else's DNA or fingerprints on the items discovered at the crime scene. Just as the detectives were beginning to lose hope, they were finally able to execute a search warrant on Alan's phone and extract all of its data. The location history showed that on January 23rd, Alan went to the Bank of America, then went to a gas supplier, a business where you can buy tanks of propane, CO2, helium, and other gases. The next day, he went to another gas supplier, Then, at 6:30 p.m., Alan went to the site of his death for an hour before going home. Why did Alan go to the same field where he would be found dead 12 hours later? They looked through Alan's emails hoping for some kind of answer, but they weren't able to find one. However, they did discover why Alan was going to different gas suppliers. It turns out that he had purchased a weather balloon months ago. In all of the interviews they conducted, nobody ever mentioned that Alan had a hobby launching weather balloons. But in his emails with the company that made the weather balloons, Alan was asking very specific questions, including: how much helium would need to be in a balloon to carry 3 pounds? Will a 350-gram balloon be able to hold 65 plus cubic feet of gas? What amount of helium will the balloon accept without bursting? If I inflate a 350-gram balloon with 60 cubic feet of helium and don't launch it for 14 hours, what will be my loss of gas, if any, during that time? This secret life of weather balloons caught everybody off guard, but the detectives ultimately brushed it off as Alan's strange hidden hobby. Until months later, when the investigators made a huge breakthrough in the case. They discovered that when you use Google's voice command feature to make web searches, Google stores a recording of your voice on your phone. They looked into Alan's voice command search history and found these recordings.
Lifting capacity of a 3-foot balloon. Much is a Walther PPK S-way. How big a helium balloon do you need to lift 3 pounds? How to tie a large balloon. Broken heart syndrome. Is there a way to hide a gunshot?
The detectives found searches of this nature going all the way back to 2009, 9 years before Alan's death. After making this discovery, all of the puzzle pieces suddenly fell into place and the detectives were able to form a clear timeline of events. On January 23rd, Alan went to the Bank of America and withdrew $500 cash. He then went to a gas supplier and purchased 40 cubic feet of helium. That was all they had in stock, so they directed him to another gas supplier, where he bought another 40 cubic feet of helium the next day. That's 80 cubic feet total. The next day, on January 24th, once the sun had set, he snuck out to a dark field to hide his helium tanks and other supplies, preparing to carry out his plan the next morning. Then, on January 25th, he left his home at 5:53 a.m. before sunrise, holding a weather balloon in his left hand. 37 minutes later, the investigators concluded that the entire incident was meticulously planned out by Alan, and the weather balloon was used to dispose of the so-called murder weapon. All of the other items found at the scene were part of this elaborate scheme to make his death look like a robbery gone wrong. It was also concluded that the strange bloodstain on his shirt was caused by a string hanging from the balloon as it floated away carrying the gun. They put the weather conditions from the day of Alan's death into an online weather balloon tracker, and they were able to simulate the balloon's path of travel following the shooting. It first went west for a few miles, before making a U-turn and heading east. It then traveled across the Atlantic Ocean and eventually burst about 40 miles north of the Bahamas. The weather balloon, the gun, and the casing attached to it were never recovered. Finally, 6 months into the investigation of Alan's death, it was now clear that Alan was pulling the strings all along. All of this evidence was presented to the medical examiner, and Alan's manner of death was changed. But why did Alan do this? Investigators believed that Alan wanted to guarantee that his family received the money from his life insurance policy. However, in an unexpected twist, Alan's insurance company told the investigators that his policies would have been paid out regardless, since he had opened them several years in advance.